I want to welcome Steven Whitney Boe tonight from Imaginal Cells FilmWorks in Los Angeles. This happens to be yet another openmythsource.com conversation with Willi, and that's me. What I want to talk about tonight initially is what I try to talk about with everybody. It's this idea of the crash or the transition or the end of the world. I want to know how you guys frame this question or concern. How do you talk about what's going on around us as we try to build consciousness?
When I look at it, I think it's all parts of cycles throughout history. Everybody thinks they're living in the worst of times or the best of times at any given moment. And
it is what it is.
You look back, I'm reading a lot of stuff on the Middle Ages right now, and I think today is, I'd much rather live right now. There's definitely shift, there's change, there's a change happening. I think we as a society have the ability to change, to affect that change in a positive way or to affect it in a negative way. I think the response we're getting right now is a lot of the response of treating our story with disrespect. But at the same time, I don't really look at it as the end of times or any of the end of the world or the crash. Or I think there is a change happening. We are in that idea of we can go either way, but I think we can go either way anytime throughout history. We've shaped who we are today by the choices we've made in the past. So I don't believe that today is the ultimate in our entire lives in the history of man. Today is the turning point. I think we've always been at turning points. I think it's egotistical to think that we are the most important humans that have ever lived, and our choice will determine it. Now, our ability to cause damage has increased greatly.
Oh, yes. We're really good at that now.
So we can't speed things up, perhaps. But I think I'm an optimist. I think both of us are, and it's just growing pains that we're always having.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys working in permaculture in any respect? Do you know what permaculture does?
Yeah, we know.
Vaguely, but I can't say we're working in it.
No, we're in the sense that we're not working in it, but we hope that through projects we work on, like through our film and that kind of stuff, and through story, as storytellers, when we can get somebody to connect to the land around them, when they connect to their environment, then just the same as if you connect to another human being, then you are incapable of doing damage to that environment. So if somebody through myth, through fairy tales, if they can go and connect to the land where they're at, I think it's going to be much more difficult for them to destroy it, and then they become shepherds of that land, and hopefully they know that the future generations, it's our duty to protect this land, hand it down to future generations.
Interesting. Whitney, do you think the classic myths are still vibrating, are still as relevant today as perhaps hundreds of years ago?
Well, the classic myth, if you look at what myth is the collective stories of a community, whether it's a small community or a medium-sized or the world. These are the basic human stories that everyone goes through. It's love, it's death, it's marriage, it's the loss of a child, it's making choices, it's disciplining a child. I mean, all of the classic myths are based on experiences that every human being at one point or another goes through. So of course they're relevant today. And what we've discovered through the course of making mythic journeys is we've been able to gain a perspective on that idea of the mythology of the past mirrors what we are doing today. You can see it in celebrities and movie stars and people of political power. These are our gods and goddesses today. We put them on pedestals. We pay homage to them. We like to dress like them. People think they're best friends with them, and they're completely insane. But you watch somebody on TV, and all of a sudden you're going, oh yeah, I was talking to Oprah. and you've never met her before, or you think you know everything about Daniel Radcliffe from Harry Potter. You've never met him, but you've idolized him, and there's a you've made a connection with this person, and that's exactly what they used to do way, way back since the beginning of time. You idolize this person or this idea, and it gives you a connection. And human beings, obviously it's in our DNA that we have to have that connection.
Interesting. I would say that I'm seeing a lot of disconnection on the planet, and a lot of disconnection in community.
Yes.
A lot of foreclosures are sort of metaphors for that disconnection when people are on the street. So I guess we could talk for hours about the power of old myth, but I really would like to transfer the conversation into what you call or what you see as new story or new myth. What does that mean to you?
Well, you won't know your mythology until after you're pretty much dead and gone, in a classic sense. It's the generations after you that reflect on the experiences of the past and then frame that mythology. You look at, there's a mythology around Ronald Reagan, around JFK. There's all these different mythologies that have, Princess Diana now has a mythology. So there's James Dean and Marilyn Monroe. Those mythologies didn't take root until after those people had gone. So it's really a reflection of what has happened in the past, bringing it into that next generation. So we're creating the myths of today as we live. But chances are we won't fully understand it until future generations. They're the ones that are going to look back and interpret what we did, what happened, and frame that into a mythology of this time. Does that make sense?
Well, Steven, if you were to ask Joseph Campbell about this present, future, backwards explanation from Whitney, which is something I've never heard before, that in effect we have to hope for the best so that the future generations understand what we're going through now. Something like that. I'm grappling with that. But what would Campbell say about that perspective, do you think?
No, I really don't know. Hopefully he'll agree with whatever I say, or I will perfectly. I think he's smarter than me, so I think he would probably come up with something wiser than I could think. I think a lot of it is, people, we get asked a lot, is there myth today? Do we not have a myth? And I think Joseph Campbell had said, we are in danger of living outside our myth, of losing our myth. And I go kind of against that. I don't think you can stop myth. Myth happens. Myth happens. Like I said earlier, we can help shape our myth. But until, as Whitney said, the future generations look at it under a microscope and dissect it a little more. It's always easier to look at something in hindsight. Doesn't mean that we are at the mercy of the fates or the mercy of what people believe of us, that we're trying to please somebody in the future. The myth affects us now. The myth that we are creating, the story that we are creating, affects us currently. But just because I don't understand or can't see the myth doesn't mean
it's not there
and that I'm utilizing it. And I think the difference is between now and possibly the past is that because we take myth and we say, oh, that's just a myth, or we put ourselves above story, we put ourselves above past events, we ignore myth. We ignore the benefits of it. So it's going to happen to us. But there's a great saying, and one of our favorite sayings that we lead off quite a bit with is, the gods will invite you on a journey. If you refuse, they'll drag you kicking and screaming.
So you can't stop myth.
And we believe that,
it's like stopping the story of life. Because that's what myth is. It's the story of life. How do you stop the story of life from happening when we're living it every day?
But are you getting dragged on that journey, or are you going on that journey and getting the most out of it? We're all going to end up, we're all heading toward a certain destination on our journey. And we can either enjoy the ride and get the most out of it, or we can struggle the whole time. We may eventually get there, but we didn't get the best out of it, or it'll take us longer to get there.
And you can be an active participant in the story and make the choices, or you can be a passive participant, ignore it, and let other people make the choices for you.
And I think that's exactly what we're in danger of right now, is being passive participants in our story and allowing events to happen to us instead of creating the events. People don't want to vote because, oh, I'm tired of voting because I don't have a job, and both the parties are stupid. And it's like, well, that's still not an option to, step out of the race.
You still have to be part of the story.
Right on. Right. How can we teach our children to use tools? How can we teach our children to use the tools to be initiated into the myth that we can enjoy with them? How does one do that?
I think, first of all, it starts really simple, and it sounds silly because it's so simple. We start a couple ways. One, by story, by telling stories to children, and not making them all Disney-fied. Okay, there's the old grim fairy tales, and the myth. Bad things happen. And when you tell a child everything's perfect, everything's going to be perfect, everything's going to be good.
If you're just a good little girl, everything will be fine.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily the case. You need to have these stories to help children deal with it when bad things happen. We try to make things so bad things don't happen. But when they do, you don't stick your head in the sand. You have to have tools which are going to teach you how to deal with them. The other thing, and you do that a lot by storytelling, by examples, how you live your life, and then also by ritual and ceremony.
Which we've completely lost today. Any of the rituals that we have, especially for kids, graduation from high school, senior prom, your first date, bachelor parties. I mean, all of these things that we consider just, I don't know.
Party times to drink.
Party times to drink, pretty much. These all started with a purpose. There's a purpose, a deeper meaning behind all of these activities. The birth of a child, a wedding, a funeral. We've so disconnected from the purpose to this. And it's a human need to do these things, to have these ceremonies. Otherwise, we wouldn't have started these millennia ago. There's a human need to connect, whether it's to the community or to the person that you're doing this thing with, but we ignore the reason, and we just have a big old party. So to children, I would hope that we would start to explain what is the purpose behind it, what are you going to get out of it, how should you end up feeling after this, going into the emotional and psychological aspects of what that ritual is. Because if we don't, then it's completely hollow. It means nothing, and it doesn't help the child progress to the next state of their lives. So we end up with all of these adults who are essentially children in the idea of myth, because they've never been initiated properly to the next stage. They don't know how to be a teenager. They don't know how to be an adult or a parent. They don't know how to be an elder and contribute to the community. It goes all the way from birth to death.
It goes back to that disconnect you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And if you have an elder who doesn't know how to deal with this, how is he going to teach the youngers coming up? So,
because that's part of the responsibility, and that's very much a recurring story in mythology, is the older teaching the younger. So I think if we can just wake up and look back at the purpose of story and how incredibly valuable it is to human beings, to just being a human being. It's not, oh, this is an American thing, this is a California thing. It's a worldwide, species-wide necessity.
So how does rock music propel and teach mythology today?
Well, being a musician, as you can probably see our instrument back here.
Yeah, that was an easy one.
In a few different ways. I think rock music gives us an outlet. She's writing right now, talk softer, because I talk so loud when I do this. I think rock music, first of all, gives kids a way to communicate. Now, just because every generation forgets how they can use music to communicate back then, when they were teenagers, so we have to look beyond the words and the lyrics. You know, every generation hates the lyrics of the one before it. Oh, we don't like the gangster rap. Oh, when I was young, oh, they kicked us out of school for listening to punk rock. Before that, it was, you know, the hard rocking bands of the 70s.
Those crazy kids
you
and
know,
their rock
go back
and
to
roll.
the 60s. So
You've heard that for generations.
it's basically all the same thing. It gives a rallying point for the kids to connect with each other. My friends, my group of friends growing up, music was our entire life. We knew every band out there. We knew the names of the bands. We knew every lyrics of songs. We gathered around and talked about music. I didn't know it then, but looking back at that now, I realize that was a major educational point for me and a way of connecting to others in my community. Mm-hmm. So now whenever I watch TV and I see a band that I have no clue what they're saying and feel really old, I just have to tell myself I was that age and my music didn't make sense to my dad and that kind of stuff. So I think it does play, I think we have to get over a lot of the lyrics. Kids, if they're brought up correctly by parents and they have, they're going to understand the difference in good and bad lyrics and harmful lyrics and that kind of stuff.
And reality.
Reality. It's the danger comes in with it when kids don't have a person to talk to and they start taking literal translations of the music.
Right.
That's where the danger comes in.
But each song, too, is just like each myth that is out there. There's basic stories that go into every... I mean, you look at any song that's ever written, what is it about? It's about love. It's about money. It's about acceptance. I mean, they've got basic themes to it. It's about defying authority, you know, rebellion. These are all themes that are prevalent in story in all mythology. So rock and roll is just basically taking myths and putting music to it, which we psychologically connect to. Yeah. It's very deep-seated in us to connect to music, has been since the dawn of time, and the cavemen playing on drums and skins of animals. There's something about the music that connects us, that feeds right directly into our soul, into our DNA. So you can't deny it, and you certainly can't stop it.
I think it's great when you have someone like mythologist Michael Meade. For anybody who doesn't know him, check out mosaicvoices.org. And he plays the congos. When he talks, it tells stories. And he works with a lot of teenagers and kids and stuff. And the reason is because when that music is playing, that music comes through your body, and it makes you more open to hearing ideas and sharing ideas. And again, we forget that a lot of times. How you put music on the background when you work so that your body is more acceptable and in tune, and that vibration just opens you up. And even you know, as a songwriter myself, I find that a lot of my songs, without even meaning to, are structured with a little bit of the hero's journey in there. Mm-hmm. And you can apply that same thing you apply to Hollywood movies to songwriting a lot of times. But it does. It makes you feel. Music makes you feel. And the problem is a lot of times we are so busy in today's world we don't feel. And it doesn't matter whether it's rock music, you know, rap music,
jazz.
Doesn't
matter.
Yanni. No, not Yanni. Forget Yanni.
I just you trying to say. But it's all the same thing. It's poetry. It's theater. It's music. It's all the same thing. It all comes from that basic human need to connect, to tell your story, to be accepted, etc.
Very cool. Well, I would like to ask Whitney, what is sacred to you? What is sacred to you tonight?
That is a very interesting question. Before we made this film, I probably would have laughed when you said that. because before we made this film, we didn't have the perspective that we have now of myth and community and human culture. And it is important to know what is sacred in your life, because if you don't know what you truly value, where are you going? How do you have any sort of compass? To me, what is sacred in my life is first and foremost is my relationship with Steven, which sounds really schmaltzy, but it's true. That would be my primary relationship, and the one thing that I simply could not and would not want to live without. Next, I think, would be the art that we create. That we hold in a very sacred place, and I'm not talking about religion. It's spiritual in the fact that it has been created from an organic place. It has come from inside us, which means we've got to have some sort of connection to it. We have given birth to this idea, whether it's our movie, whether it's one of his songs. It really doesn't matter. All art is spiritual, and all art should be treated as sacred, not in the sense of religion, again, or being some high spiritual concept, but important to the connection to the spirit of the artist who created it. And then, of course, our dogs. Our dogs are very sacred to us.
Okay, Steven, what do you think about sacred?
What do I think, honey? No.
Good answer.
I know. I agree with that. I mean, definitely our goal has always been together is to find a way that we can do all of our work together with each other, because we said we could probably make more money working outside for outside production companies and that kind of stuff. But early on, I'd be gone 14-hour days. And we decided, you know what, it's better for us to be together, make a little less money, and be able to enjoy each other and work on projects together. So we made a choice to forgo a little bit more money and maybe even a little more security to always work together and create together. And you know, especially myself, I'm not happy unless I'm creating something as an artist. I think a lot of artists are like that. If I ever do get depressed, it's usually because I don't have a project or something creative to work on. And then I start, you know, making them up until one starts to emerge. You know, puttering around the house in a bathrobe. But yeah, it's keeping the creativity alive, keeping the joy alive, following the bliss. That's really what's sacred for us.
And it doesn't have to be art for people.
No, it's whatever it is.
Your passion doesn't have to be something that's this great artistic or humanitarian deed that you have done. It can be something very, very simple and sacred to you. If you like to work with flowers and that's what is your passion in life, you like to attend to your garden, and then that's great, and you are connecting to your spirit, and that is something sacred to you, which is great. You don't have to go out and cure cancer.
Feel free to.
Feel free to, of course. If you have any ideas, you know, don't hold back. But it's when we connect to community through what we truly believe we should be doing that we can evolve as a society and as a species. So whatever your passion is, if you can put that into use, into your community, and do something good for another person, you are helping the species evolve.
Cool. Well, let's follow that up with a discussion on alchemy, if you will.
Okay.
One of my basic interests is how different types of alchemy are helping us write mythologies. And I've created about 7 new alchemy types. I want to know how you see alchemy and how it works before and behind the camera, both as an actor or performer and as somebody who's actually working the gear and making a production. So let's talk about that kind of alchemy and that transmutational process and how you see that in your work.
Well, what is your definition of alchemy, first of all? Why don't you
Well,
tell what you mean by that word?
Well, simply put, it's transmutation.
Okay.
I have identified eco-alchemy, shamanistic alchemy, global alchemy, things like that, different levels, different zones, different connector points for it. I'm hoping to get past the stuck point of religion and its lack of support in our culture. I want to have some other toolkit, and so I'm inventing things here, hoping people chime in. So that's what I'm talking about. Alchemy is changing one thing to another.
Right.
You know, you really do that. I mean, basically any artist does that. The goal is to change it into something that you meant to change it into.
Sometimes that doesn't happen.
And really experience is what allows you to do that. In the beginning, you basically mix things together and you see what you get. And down the road, I mean, and art is always going to be like that. You don't have 100% control of art. Experience allows you to have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be and a better shot at what it's going to be.
But then the wisdom comes in letting it become what it needs to become.
Letting it breathe, yeah. And so when we create something, we are taking, you know, as filmmakers, we take a story, whether we wrote that story or we found the story or however we got the story, and our goal is not to just tell somebody a story, as is any storyteller. Our goal is to convey an emotion. So we are taking that story and figuring out how do we take the words on this page and turn them into an emotion that does a couple things. First of all, that speaks to ourselves. Because if it doesn't speak to us, there's no way we are going to be able to share it with somebody else. The second part of that emotion is being able to connect with a person in the audience. Not a group, but an individual person in an audience. Now we hope as filmmakers and businessmen and women that it connects to a lot of people. But when we are telling a story, first and foremost we're telling it to ourselves, and then we are talking to each individual person in that audience. So it's converting story into emotion and then transferring that emotion to the viewer.
Right. And hopefully with what you're doing, for instance, transferring that emotional connection into action. What is that person now going to do with the information you have just given them?
Yeah. Inspiring action. So there you've taken a printed word or oral word and turned it into action. I don't know if that fits what you're talking about as far as alchemy is concerned, but that's how I would see a change.
Well, you've talked about emotion, which is interesting. I haven't really worked that angle much, and so that's a good thing to hear. Important for me.
As human beings, we don't really connect on an intellectual level. We connect on an emotional level. It's always emotional. The people that you're friends with, that you choose to have in your life, the people that you connect with, it's always on an emotional level.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how smart that person is. It doesn't matter if you are reading the same equation. It's always on an emotional level. We connect as emotional beings, period.
Yeah.
And then, like Deepak says in our movie, and then we rationalize it later with some sort of intellectual, mumbo jumbo. But it's always on an emotional level, period.
People think, oh, I like that person because they're smart, so I'm connecting them on an intellectual level. No, you're connecting, they're intellectual, so you're happy and you're connecting with them on an emotional level. And you do it right here, just as you're talking here, because what's amazing about a story, sometimes the story itself, and quite often, is unimportant. Mm-hmm. When somebody tells you a story, what's really important that we learned early on when doing this, just by surprise, is why did you just tell me that story? Why? Because when you tell me that story, and then I find out why you told me that story, all of a sudden, a story that I might have heard in the past that I went, okay, it's an okay story. and I find out that story is important to you because your father told it to you when you were a child, and it was the last thing he told you before he went off to war or whatever, all of a sudden, I'm connected to you as a person.
On an emotional level.
The story becomes more important to me, but the connection, the emotional importance that you shared a story that was important to you, to me, that connects me to you, and it makes me like you. Because then I go, you know what? You're being honest with me. You're telling me an honest story, the authenticity that's coming through, and that's wonderful. And if somebody comes up to us, which they quite often do after a screening of the movie, and they come up, and they almost all have the same look in their eyes, and they come up and they ask us a question, and they're looking for an answer. And unfortunately, we don't have the answers.
We're not the smartest people in the world, okay? We're just filmmakers.
But when I see that question, and to me, I get so much respect for this person to come up and them to share their longing and their need, and all of a sudden we've made a connection. And that's really a great thing. We've been blessed with this film more than anything else in our lives because we've made so many different connections. And growing up and being in theater, that connection was there in every single theatrical production we were ever in, except for one, but that one sucked. But we hadn't, when we got out of theater and we started getting into film and stuff, we didn't have that connection for a long time until we started doing this film and we started connecting with the audience. Then we remembered that connection and we went, wow, this is wonderful. So
it's an energy that we haven't been able to scientifically quantify. It's like germs today. We know about germs today. Back in the Middle Ages, they had no clue. If somebody had said something like that, they would have been burned at the stake for heresy, or whatever. So there's things we have yet to discover, and that is one of those things that we haven't discovered yet. Is we can't see it, we can feel it, but we certainly can't quantify it. We don't have a machine to measure emotional connections between people. Hopefully we will in the future, because then that will validate the idea of it. And just like germs, we learned pretty fast once we discovered that. It's like, yeah, we maybe need to pay attention to this.
All right, good, thank you. Let's talk about symbols. I want to know, what are the new symbols of our current age?
The dollar sign? No.
Yeah, the dollar sign. Unfortunately,
that's nothing.
True.
That's nothing new. There's nothing new with that. The new symbols. I think I've got email is. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
That's a tough one, huh?
It's a tough one. You've stumped us with that question.
Well, let me give you a hint.
Okay.
From my work in permaculture, some of the symbols are the soil, a rake, a pair of boots, compost. These are things that I see going into ritual someday and are driven by alchemy. So that's what I mean by, what are the new symbols? Okay. It's a hard question because people just aren't thinking about it too much.
I think you're correct. We often talk to them about, especially making this film, the signs that have appeared to us along the way. So I think we're calling them, signs and symbols. So when we look at it that way, when we made this film, a lot of people would say, well, when did your journey start? Tell us about your journey. And at first, we didn't think about that. We were like, well, I don't know.
Oh, that's a hard question, really.
So we started looking back over from the making this film, our journey of making this film. And we started looking at all the little signs that showed up, or symbols that showed up, that caused us to look and maybe change direction or go a certain direction. Right. And as we started going in the direction, we could see a really straight path of how we got to where we are today. Mm-hmm. Now, what was really nice about that is by seeing those in the past, it taught us to look at them in the present. When you look at them in the past, they don't do as much as if you look at them in the present, because when you look at them in the present, you can take more advantage of them. So when you see these symbols, such as, and I think symbols can be anything, and I think they're very personal too, as well as each individual person or group. What's important to me may not be important to you. What I read as a symbol may just be a piece of burnt toast to you. So
maybe unless you see Jesus in the toast.
Oh yeah, okay. Unless we see Jesus into the toast.
Catholic toast.
Catholic
toast. So what I think if we can learn to see symbols that are important to us, and I think the easiest way is by looking at the symbols of our past, our personal past, not necessarily, and it helps us identify the symbols of the present, and then we can take advantage of that. By doing that, when we get a sign or a symbol, and it shows up now, quite often we readily see it, and we readily act on that sign. Also, when we look over into that abyss, we look forward and we go, we don't know what's going to happen. Where in the past we might have, had a little trepidation about moving forward, because well, what's going to happen if I jump off this cliff here? What's going to happen? Now we go, something's going to happen, and now we don't know any better what's going to happen. But what we have now is we have a trust that something's going to happen, that it's not the end of the journey, that something's going to happen, and we can affect that in a positive way. It may not be what we expect, it may not be what we were asking for to happen, but we do trust that we are going to be taken care of when we jump.
We've been led in the right direction by the signs.
By the signs have led us in that direction and told us, yes, go ahead and jump, and you'll be taken care of. Now, there are signs that say, don't jump. Whatever you do, don't jump. And if you ignore those, that's just as, bad. And then you have hindsight to go, oh, I shouldn't have jumped. Next time, I will know better. Hopefully.
Okay, guys, here's my last question. It's the Hollywood question.
Okay.
Wait.
Here's my spin on the Hollywood question. Tell me what channel or mode has the most mythic impact? Live storytellers, film, or YouTube?
Well, if you're talking impact in a positive way,
doesn't matter.
Okay, I would say definitely film, because it can reach so many more people than just one theatrical production. You can only get 50 people in a house one night. You're only touching 50 people. You have a film going out worldwide. You're talking millions and millions of people that are connecting to that piece of art. YouTube is not art, at least what I've seen.
Hold on, let me write that down.
It's not. It's.
Well, there's a great saying of theater is art, film is life, and television is furniture. You have to add YouTube to that somewhere.
And YouTube is a poster on a wall. I don't know. It's just it's a way for people to express themselves in very short, little, quick ways. It's become so dominant in our culture. I mean, it's amazing how fast it took off. But I think it took off because it's this new technology. People can show themselves. Everybody wants to be on TV. Everybody wants to be on TV. They want their 15 minutes of fame, because being famous is really important to our society, which is not such a good thing. It's more important to be famous than to be valuable.
Than to do something
nowadays.
Worth being famous for.
Than to be worthy. So I think that it's not that this is going to be like the all-ending technology thing of the future. Sooner or later, it'll peter out. But it's such a new thing, and people can see themselves and watch other people, I guess, being stupid. And that's kind of funny. So it's an entertainment. It's a new form of entertainment. And it'll go the way it goes. But it certainly isn't the best way to connect with people on a positive, evolutionary scale.
Now, this is one of the rare times that I have to disagree with my lovely wife.
Okay.
Being a tech nerd that I am, is it okay to disagree?
Yes,
okay.
You can disagree with me for now.
Well, when you're talking about live storytellers, are you talking theater or face-on-face, one-on-one, or a person talking to people?
Oh, just live, whatever the context, just present room.
Live, first of all, yes, I think is by far the best situation, because you can feel a person's energy coming from them. You can also see lies from a person very easily in person. And I don't mean lying that they're telling you a false truth. I don't mean it that they're lying to you, but they're not necessarily lying to themselves. I mean, they're lying to themselves when they tell a story.
They're inauthentic.
And they're not being authentic. They're not telling you. You can see those little minute signs in person, or just feel it, that you don't always in a film. Film is manipulation in a way. We want you as artists to feel, as artists, we want you to feel a certain way. So we are trying to manipulate you into a feeling. That's not, I don't mean that in a negative sense. It can be a very, very positive experience. And the experience that the audience sees in it can be a very powerful thing. And if there's only 50 people in the audience there, those 50 people, if they're inspired and moved by that what they just saw, and that could be a silly comedy to a dark drama and anything in between, they're going to go out, and that's going to affect how they behave in society and how they behave with other people, how they communicate with other people. So it's a virus that spreads, a good positive virus that can spread out there.
But film does that too, and on a much larger level.
No, that's what I said on the film. In film, it doesn't matter the size of the audience, it's still going to have that same effect. Yes, it can reach that. Now, if you want to reach even more than film, you have YouTube. Now, with anything out there, without there, I mean, you can't tell me Tosh.0 isn't art. Watching that now. Anything out there has its good and bad sides.
Sure.
If I turn on a YouTube video and it's a silly guy doing something that silly guys do, and I laugh for a minute, that guy just brought me some joy. That joy hopefully lasts with me when I go out and greet the next person, and I'm like, oh, hey, you got to see this video. This is just stupid. We're laughing, and it's also a way of not taking ourselves as humans that seriously. But it's a wonderful, wonderful communication skill, or a device. The fact that I can sit in my room, I can make a little video, or I can play a video game with somebody in Germany, but it doesn't even speak the same language as I do, yet we're playing both the same game, or we're laughing at the same stupid cat video. There's something really, really powerful, and it's connecting us to a culture. So now, I think it's really effective to the younger generations, that maybe they won't look at that person in that foreign country as the other anymore. They'll look at that person as another person instead of the other person. I think if we can do that, if we can look at a person as just another person, whether they're from another culture, another race, whatever, that's great. And so YouTube and the internet is wonderful. Now, there's always the bad sides that happen with that. There's child predators. There's everything with that. So as parents, if we can teach our kids as much as possible the values that we want, and we understand the rituals and stuff like that, and discuss with them, maybe with a younger kid who's on a site and he's talking to classmates in Japan or something, or watching the tsunami information that happened in Japan. Wow, he's connecting to somebody he never would have done before. If we can connect to them and help mentor them as they grow older, I think the positive in all of that outweighs any of the negative. And there's I've seen some great YouTube stuff. Now you have to shuffle through all the dead squirrels videos, which I loved anyhow. But
the dead squirrel, that was classic.
So how's
I will have to.
I brought you over to the dark side.
Yeah, I will abdicate my position to you. Yes. So yeah, I agree with it on that level.
Well, how is your YouTube channel going? How many hits are you getting, etc.?
We have about I think 3,000 subscribers. We've had about 30,000 hits on it. It's not viral or anything, but we're trying.
We need
I'm
more
constantly.
dead squirrels.
Yeah. We need more. Obviously, the more the shorter and the more
base humor,
cats or dead squirrels we can put in our video, the more hits we'll get on it.
Or drunk people throwing up.
That does well. And also, you know what I did is I uploaded a bunch of videos all at once, and I put them all in private mode. And then every once in a while, I'd go in and I would turn them into public mode so that they would be listed. What I failed to realize is that when you do that, it doesn't email all your subscribers as a new video up.
Oh.
I didn't realize this until last week. So I'm like going, for the last year, has been getting updates to our site. So we've been getting new subscribers. So finally when I realized that, now when I uploaded one today, a really neat one with Deepak Chopra talking about his favorite myth, which is really neat. And it's just a minute-long video, but right away it went out to all 2,500 people, and they got an email saying there's a new posting there, and then we sold a few DVDs, and it was, so it was great. But yeah, and it's fun. I've been getting so many nice comments from it all the time.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. That's true. I'm glad you're doing it.
Okay, you guys, I have a quick favor.
Okay.
Sure.
I want to take a Skype video portrait.
Okay.
So if you would give me a sort of big happy LA smile and shine that guitar and all that stuff. Ready? Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm going to post this to my network plus the YouTube.
Okay,
so
great.
The coverage will be extensive. And what I also want to do is write you back, send you some of the myths and things I'm working on. See if you can give me some feedback.
Great. I don't think I saw your YouTube channel. I think I went to your website or when you emailed. I'm not sure. It's been a busy week.
I hear you.
Insane. It's totally insane.
I'll just turn you on to it. I'll send you the link to the list.
Link.
How's your site going? Are you doing a lot of promotion with it? How are you getting people onto it?
I have a sponsor, Red Weiser Books.
Mm-hmm.
Places an ad. I'm writing a proposal for a book plus website right now.
Okay.
I want to give people a chance to look at my work and then activate it, like we talked tonight. Go do something about the planet. So it's not just a book.
I just started using through a friend of ours who promotes it or does something with it or something. It's an electronic kind of a robot software program that scours the internet and finds new subscribers for you. So it increased our subscribers from like 500 to almost 3,000 in 2 months or something like that.
Does it send you the people? Do you contact them, or does the bot contact them for you?
The bot contacts them through. It's some kind of YouTube bot that you put in keywords of the type of community that you're looking for. So if you're looking for eco, spiritual world, or you put in keywords, and then it starts sending out to those people that have those keywords put on their things. And it's been pretty good because the majority of people that have come onto our site now are very specific and very much like what we have on our site.
Right.
So I'm not getting somebody who likes skateboards coming to our site because that's not what we're about. But email me when you have this stuff up there, and I'll send you the link to. I think it's. I don't know what they charge. They charge like a monthly fee, but it's like $10 or something like that. But I've had it for now 2 months, and I've been blown away by it.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called offhand. I'll have to ask him. But it's been good. So.
You guys have been a pleasure.
Great, you too.
And I'm really happy to have met you. I'll look for a chance to come by for a lunch out sometime soon.
Where are you located?
Oh, I live up in the Northland, up in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. Well.
Yeah, a bit of a commute.
All right. Have a good evening, Willie. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Ciao, guys.
Bye.